It happened on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in a quiet suburb of Arizona. The sun was bright, the breeze was warm, and I was just returning from a quick trip to the pharmacy when everything changed. From across the parking lot, I caught a glimpse of something that stopped me cold. Karen, our neighbor of 3 years, raising her hand and striking my wife, my pregnant wife. She didn't see me, but I saw everything. My legs moved before my brain could catch up. I dropped the bag of medicine and sprinted toward them, heart pounding, fists clenched. I didn't even realize I was shouting until I saw both of them turn toward me. My wife, startled and holding her stomach, and Karen, her face drained of color. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled, the words almost catching in my throat. Karen backed up a step, her expression quickly shifting, from rage to guilt, then to that practiced mask of suburban innocence she wore so well. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered. She was being rude. She bumped into me, and, "She's pregnant, Karen," I said, my voice shaking, "and I saw what you did." My wife reached for my hand, her fingers cold, trembling. She looked more shaken than hurt, but I couldn't be sure. I turned to her, placing a hand gently on her shoulder. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded slowly, but I could see tears forming in her eyes. "I'm fine. The baby's fine. She snapped. I turned back to Karen, who was already inching toward her car. "You're not walking away from this," I told her. "You laid hands on a pregnant woman. You crossed a line." And that's when she said it, low and bitter, almost under her breath. But I heard it. "She deserved it." I froze. There was a moment of silence that seemed to stretch for hours, filled only by the hum of passing cars and the wind rustling through the palm trees. "She deserved it." The words echoed in my head, each repetition more twisted than the last. "What did you just say?" I asked, my voice low now, calm. Too calm. That kind of calm that comes right before something dangerous. Karen didn't answer. She looked at me, then at my wife, then back at me. Her mouth opened like she might say something else, but nothing came out. And then she did what cowards often do. She turned and ran. She got in her car, slammed the door, and sped off down the street without another word. I stood there for a few seconds, stunned. My wife leaned into me, and I wrapped my arm around her, trying to slow my breathing, trying to stay grounded. I could feel the fire inside me building, begging me to chase her down, to do something reckless, but I couldn't. Not with my wife shaking in my arms, not with our baby inside her, depending on both of us to stay calm. We went home in silence. That night, I filed a police report. Assault on a pregnant woman, felony charges if it went anywhere. The officer took our statements and nodded gravely, said they'd look into it. But deep down, I knew how these things could go. Karen was smart, manipulative. She knew how to play people. She'd done it before, just never this blatantly. And then, the next morning, things got worse. A notice was taped to our front door. I pulled it down slowly, the tape crackling as it peeled away from the wood. The paper was thick, official looking. Not from the police. It was from a lawyer. "Cease and desist," the bold letters at the top read. My blood ran cold. Apparently, Karen had retained legal counsel overnight and was now accusing us, me and my wife, of harassment, public defamation, and emotional distress. I stared at the letter in disbelief. The same woman who assaulted my pregnant wife was now trying to flip the narrative, to make herself the victim. My wife sat down on the porch step, holding her belly, her eyes wide with exhaustion and disbelief. Is this really happening? She's trying to scare us, I said, crumpling the paper in my hand. Classic deflection. She knows she's in the wrong. But even as I said it, I felt a creeping unease. Karen had always been off, controlling, passive-aggressive. She once tried to convince the HOA to fine a neighbor because their wind chimes were too spiritual. She smiled at your face, then reported you for a parking violation behind your back. But no one had ever challenged her. Not really, until now. And apparently she didn't like that. That evening, things escalated. As the sun dipped behind the hills and shadows grew long, we heard a noise outside, like footsteps on gravel. I peeked through the blinds. There, in our driveway, stood Karen. She wasn't alone. She wasn't alone. Beside her stood a tall man in a navy suit, mid-40s, clean-shaven, holding a briefcase and wearing the kind of smile that made your skin crawl. Behind them, idling at the curb, was a black sedan with tinted windows. I opened the door just enough to step out. My wife stayed inside, watching from behind the curtain. Evening, the man in the suit said, all politeness, like this was just a friendly visit. I'm Mark Calloway. I represent Miss Karen Wilkins in a pending civil matter. Karen folded her arms across her chest, chin tilted, that smug look of control back on her face, like she'd already won. We're here to deliver a verbal clarification in addition to the cease and desist, Calloway continued. Any further contact, verbal or physical, including public statements or posts on social media regarding Ms. Wilkins, will be considered a violation. Do you understand? I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. Your client assaulted my wife, I said. She laid her hands on a pregnant woman. I have video from the pharmacy's parking lot cameras. So let me ask you something, Mr. Calloway. Does she understand what she's about to face? The smile slipped just a little. He glanced at Karen, then back at me. If you have evidence, we'll review it in due time. But in the meantime, we urge you to proceed with caution. Misunderstandings have a way of escalating. And then Karen did something strange. She leaned in and whispered, almost sweetly, "You don't know who you're messing with." Then they turned and walked away. Simple as that. But those words stuck with me. That night, I checked the footage from the pharmacy. I had a friend who worked there. He'd pulled the file for me. The timestamp, the angle, it was all clear as day. Karen slapped my wife. But as I was about to save the video to a flash drive, I noticed something else. Something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. There was someone else in the background, watching. Not me. Someone standing near the dumpsters, half hidden. Not moving, just watching my wife the whole time. And it wasn't Karen. I rewound the footage. The man was still there, partially obscured near the dumpsters, unmoving. He wasn't just a random bystander. He didn't react. He didn't call for help. He didn't even flinch when Karen struck my wife. He was just watching and smiling. I zoomed in on his face. It was grainy, but something about him felt familiar. I dug through old photos, social media posts, neighborhood BBQs, and then I found it. A Facebook photo from 2018. Pool party. Karen holding a drink with her arm around the same man. Caption: with my big brother, finally in town. It wasn't random. It was calculated. The slap wasn't just an outburst, it was a test. A move in a bigger game. And when I pushed back, they didn't just retaliate, they escalated. Karen wasn't acting alone. Her brother had a history. I found court documents, sealed but still accessible if you knew where to look. He'd once been investigated for witness intimidation during a civil trial. Charges dropped. No conviction. But the pattern was clear. I took everything to my attorney, a seasoned, no-nonsense woman who didn't flinch when she saw the footage. We didn't just respond to Karen's claims. We filed a lawsuit of our own. Assault, intentional infliction of emotional distress, witness intimidation. Karen didn't show up in court. Her brother did. And when the judge watched the video, Karen slapping my wife, her brother lurking in the background, silent and grinning, the courtroom went completely still. In the end, they settled. A sizable compensation, permanent no-contact order, and a handwritten apology letter from Karen, submitted under oath. We walked out of that courthouse hand in hand. My wife smiled for the first time in weeks, and me, I didn't feel victorious. I felt warned. Because evil doesn't always wear the face of a monster. Sometimes it wears a neighbor's smile. It waves at you from across the fence. It brings cookies to your doorstep. And sometimes justice takes its time. But when it arrives, it knows exactly where to knock.